everyone, this is my last screencast for the semester, and it's been enjoyable, and I definitely think that this course has changed the way that I look at design, and I definitely think I've developed skills that I didn't even realize I had. So, first, just looking at my original MMP proposal, the goal was to set up a website for teachers to use to help promote different technologies in their classroom. And the purpose of my website was to serve as a how-to for different types of technology that teachers can use and then have their students use in their classroom. And just looking at the objectives, so my learning objectives were to teach educators how to use different multimedia tools that then can be incorporated into their educational units and provide educators with online resources to better help them to use technology in their classroom. My plan was to develop a web page that had different sections for different types of technology, and then within each section, there would be a how-to video on how to develop and use the type of multimedia resources for ways to use it in your classroom, and then links to resources involving the multimedia. So I definitely think that I was able to accomplish these goals. I'm not so sure that my original plan, or I guess idea of what my website would look like, was what it turned out to be, but I'm definitely confident that my final project is something that would be helpful to educators, which is the ultimate goal with it. So just looking at my website, you can see that there's how-to sections for each of these. So just looking at podcasts, for example, there's a screencast how-to, so if you need a step-by-step visually, or there is just a step-by-step account that you can read through. And then there's a technology in the classroom tab that allows you to see how to use these different types of multimedia in your classroom through lesson plans, and some of these they have YouTube videos for how you can use these within your classroom, or even just backing up reasons for using these resources and things like that. And then there's other ways to use, like, say, podcasting in your classroom. These are different examples that are a little different than the type of podcasting that I used. So you can see that for each of these you have resources and then other types of tools similar to the ones that I had picked. I think when I started this website, I wasn't exactly prepared for developing a web page, and I didn't really realize how much time everything was going to take. I think the very first thing I had to overcome with this was actually figuring out how to develop a website, because it's something that I'd never done before. I had had some setbacks with the first couple of actual platforms that I had tried to use to build my page. Either they weren't exactly what I was looking for in terms of design and the design rules, or they were too limited unless you paid for upgrades. So I finally was able to find Wix.com based on a suggestion from one of my classmates, and it ended up being a great tool. So once I actually began building my website, I think I was able to accomplish my stated objectives and goals very well. I had some great input from classmates throughout the way, through our online discussion boards, especially with our screencasts for our MMP updates. You can see there's quite a few comments from many of you, and just being able to get feedback from other people who are in this course and teachers at school was great to help in accomplishing my goals. I spent a lot of time Googling teaching resources and actually using each of the tools that I had picked on my page to make sure that the types of things that I were picking could actually be used in the classroom, and I would want to use them in my classroom before I actually recommended them to others. I think a great part of helping me was also the mixed media or mixed digital media critique project. So the things that we posted with the screencasts about still media, moving media, audio media were very helpful, because I actually was able to develop some ideas based on things that I had picked or recommendations my classmates had made, because my original proposal was very vague when saying technology. because I really wasn't sure exactly what types of technology I wanted to include. And so I think that the multi the mixed digital media critique was very helpful because I was able to select podcast, Prezi, Blogger, Blendspace, Pixel, and Animoto based on um, recommendations from my classmates or different things that I found while trying to complete that project. And I think that these 6 tools can be very good for teachers of varying grade levels and subjects, even though I might be a little biased towards middle school science while creating this, but I think that the tools that I picked are very versatile for any kind of educator. And I think a lot of that was seen through classroom feedback and through that mixed digital media critique. So I think um, overall, the main things that went into this website were specifically design wise were from um, some of the assignments from some of our text. And specifically, if I go back to my blog, I think some of the mini art school was very helpful, specifically this storyboard. You can see that um, I guess I can say that I kind of stuck to my storyboard and was able to kind of plan out exactly what I wanted each page to look like. And they did end up kind of looking like this with a screencast and then lists below. And this was very helpful when actually going back and planning my web page. And then just a lot of the design things. So learning how to crop and edit pictures was helpful with each step-by-step section down here. I was able to learn to crop and add pictures together. I think also a lot of these editing mini art schools were helpful because then I learned to use Pixel, which actually ended up being one of my resources that I chose for teachers, and I used it a lot when editing the photos for each how-to step. And I think just in general, trying to keep to design, mainly these like chapter 4 from White Space is Not Your Enemy and the 13 layout sins. I think specifically a lot of these for me were I tried to keep these in mind when working through my screen or my web page. So like in the past, I definitely was a big uh, let's center everything fan, or let's use a lot of fonts, or let's pick busy backgrounds. A lot of these were things that I can say that I was guilty of committing prior to this course. And I think that in my final web page, I tried to be very cognizant of these design tools. So you can see white space was not my enemy on my web page. It's specifically the background is white, and I tried to stick to one specific font type and a 2 color scheme type, I guess, design layout. So I was using just blues and oranges to not overwhelm with colors. And I tried to keep these in mind, and then the 10 web designs rules that you can break. And I think that this reading in particular was something that I really had in mind when trying to go through and making sure that everything looked visually appealing and wasn't too overwhelming and things weren't cluttered like the background per se. So I think those 2 readings were very, very helpful in designing the overall look for my project. Um, and I think the main thing that is great about my webpage is that I can continue to update it. And it's also going to be something that I can use in my own classroom. And so, like, I have the in the news section, which can be updated as new pieces I read on the web are related to technology. It's good to keep up to date. You can see that some of these are already from October, so I could already go back and update my webpage. And also, I think it's important to, if I find resources for some of these, like new ways to use podcasting or new ways to use Prezi, to continue to update these so that if people are using my webpage, which I hope they are, they can continue to see that this is evolving, and hopefully by having a contact us page, someone, if they're using my page and they say, oh, look, I found a new lesson plan on podcasting or how to use any Modo or Blogger in the classroom, they can send me a message and say, here's another great resource to add. So for me, I think it's a project that is still evolving, even though our semester is done. Um, and I think that it's something that I hopefully can share with my colleagues and they can use, and they're able to help me continue to update it so that everybody can continue to share the different resources that I have. So, with that being said, I think overall this project was very beneficial to me because now I have this wealth of resources to use in my classroom. And a lot of these don't necessarily need to be used in a science classroom, and that's great, is that I can share these with anybody, not just my science colleagues. And I think that it definitely turned out a lot better than I was imagining. And I definitely think I now have the skills to build a website, which was actually, this was wonderful because I actually ended up having to build a website for another course as a final. And so I was able to take a lot of the things that I had learned in here based on web design and how something should look visually and apply it to that web page also. So I definitely think this course has really taken me outside of my comfort zone per se, or has kind of shown me a lot of the things that I did wrong with design and how I could change that. Specifically, centering things was something I was definitely very guilty of, and busy backgrounds, lots of colors, things like that. And I never really thought of design and web design in the way that it was presented in a lot of our readings. And so now I think I have these tools to say, okay, what can I do to make something visually pleasing and not overwhelming? Because that was one of my main goals with my web page was, how do I make this visually pleasing and not overwhelming for someone who's looking at it? And I had always thought that meant using lots of colors, and you can see here that I really tried to stick with white backgrounds in order to kind of get myself out of my old design habits and really try to make things kind of look fluid and stick to those design ideas from white space is not your enemy. So with that, I hope that you, my fellow classmates, can use some of the tools that I have posted on my webpage, and I will continue even after the semester to love your feedback, or if you find things that are great ways to use some of these or other tools, different types of media that maybe you are using now in your classrooms, go ahead and feel free to send me a message through our contacts us tab, and it'd be great to continue to hear from you and your feedback about different design principles and ways to continue to use multimedia in education, since we are all educators. But with that, thank you for a great semester, and thanks for being very helpful and providing a lot of feedback throughout the course to really help me grow as a online, I guess, web design developer, and help discover great resources that I'll be able to continue to use as a teacher.